Hello everybody and welcome back again to Let's Play Fallout New Vegas. We're still here in the bunker at the behest of, well, both Caesar and Mr. House. Of course we can only finish one of their tasks, but before I go ahead with that, there's something else that I want to do, because while editing the previous episode I realized that, yeah, I may have taken the wrong red thingy. I've taken a red away when I should have taken a red X, because the red away removes radiation and the red X prevents radiation. So let's remedy that, and now my resistance is a lot better. And yeah, I have already disabled the security systems, so I hope that this place is pretty safe now. Let's find out. I mean, this already looks pretty safe. Not seeing any robots. This door is activated elsewhere. Okay. Can I not override it? I mean, there's like an override over here. Apparently not. Okay. I see some protectrons here, but they're not hostile. And, oh yeah, look at this. Securitrons, and quite a lot of them. There's like a whole army of Securitrons down here. And yeah, even more over here. I can see why Mr. House wanted me to go here. Anyway, let's move on. Got a turret, but it's not active. Don't need any of that. So onwards we go. Okay. What's going on in this place? Examine power regulator. Alright. If the bunker's power regulators are destroyed, its reactor core will overload in a matter of seconds with catastrophic results. Okay, so if I wanted to destroy this place, this is how I would do it. By destroying the power regulator. I see. Oh, hello Mr. Handy. What happened to you? I will take your fuel.
Move along, please.
What's inside here? Another power core and, okay, another power regulator. And is it the same over here? Yeah, so I guess I would have to destroy all of the power regulators to blow up this place. But that's not what I want to do. So let's keep looking. Systems room. Okay. Got even more Securitrons over here. And I think I'm not going to need my weapon. Do we have anything of interest here? Not really. This door is permanently jammed, cutting off access to other sections of the vault. Okay. Can't go through here. Oh, is this it? Activate Securitron operations console. Okay. This is the Securitron operations console for the Securitron vault. Software updates can be installed from this console. Leave the console alone. Insert the platinum chip and install the MK2 upgrade software. Okay, so this is what I would have to do if I want to finish the task for Mr. House, which I guess I will do. I mean, I'm not sure if I want to go through with Mr. House's plan all the way, but this might be my only chance to do this part of the quest, and I kind of want to follow up on all the different faction quests as far as I can until I have to make a decision. So I guess we're going to do this now. Also, I still can't think of a single reason why Hera would want to help the Legion. I mean, I have already established her as kind of an enemy of the Legion. She's a woman, which means that if the Legion were to take over this region, her status would basically be reduced to that of, I don't know, Brahmin cattle. And as we've seen in that slave ledger, we can't really count on special treatment just because we've been helpful. Once you've outlived your usefulness, that's not going to matter anymore. And she's also a scientist, and from what I've seen so far, the Legion seems to be rather primitive in regards to science. As a matter of fact, judging from some of the conversations that I had, this might be by design, so they are anti-science on purpose. So that would be another reason for Hera not to support them. And I do find it rather telling, by the way, that Caesar hasn't even tried to offer her any kind of incentive to help him. No offer of a reward, no explanation why she should welcome a Legion victory. Just, here's a chip, go and do it because I'm the mighty Caesar. I don't know, maybe the incentive is supposed to be you're going to get out of here alive again, but then again he hasn't really made any kind of specific threat either. And still, he seems to be really convinced that we are going to go through with this and help him, which means that he's either very stupid or very, very full of himself. Or I guess it could be both. And honestly, I don't think that he's stupid. So it's probably the latter. He thinks people are going to do what he says just because he is the mighty Caesar. I mean, say what you will about Mr. House. I think he's shady, and I'm pretty sure he's very convinced of himself too. But at least he made an attempt to actually convince Hera. He offered some admittedly poorly defined personal reward, but he also was a little bit more specific about his plans and his, I don't know, vision for the region, and why it would not be such a bad thing if he and his upgraded Securitrons would be in charge. So it wasn't just a personal reward, but also a more general incentive by saying, it's not just going to be good for you and me, but also for New Vegas and the region in general. Whether or not I agree with that is a different question, but at least he did give us a sales pitch. And Caesar is basically just, well, he apparently thinks that just seeing him and his weird collection of Roman cosplayers is enough to convince me. Well, it's not. So we're going to install the upgrade, and then we will see what the fallout is going to be, no pun intended, because obviously I will go back to Caesar and I will have to tell him that I haven't destroyed this place, which might cause the conversation to go sideways. But at least I have my weapons back again, so I hope it's going to be fine. So yeah, let's go ahead and install the upgrade. Okay, here we go. And yeah, look at that. He came to life, and I just got a bunch of updates on my quests. Return to Caesar. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Report back to Mr. House for further instructions. Right. Let's do it. And I wonder what would happen if I destroyed the power regulators now. I'm going to assume it would just destroy the Securitrons and thus failing the quest for Mr. House. Would make sense anyway. And yep, they're active too. Still can't open this door though. Alright, Mr. House.
Your work here is done. Return to the Lucky 38 so we can discuss next steps. You have a very bright future ahead of you. Thanks to your actions today, so does the rest of mankind.
Okay, if you say so. But I mean, that's what I'm talking about. He's trying to, offer us something. A bright future for me and for mankind. Whether or not that's true is a different question, but he is at least trying. He isn't just going to rely on his fame that, I'm going to help him. Okay, yeah, let's leave this place. And now we gotta go back to Caesar. I'm pretty sure there's nothing here that I can do.
You've carried out Caesar's will, but I must confiscate your equipment again.
Well, I haven't really, but I'm not going to tell you that I haven't, so if you want to believe that, that's fine with me. But okay, I have to return my weapons again, so I won't have my weapons when I'm going to report to Caesar. Okay, well, I guess I gotta do that.
You're free to leave.
Okay, there we go. And yeah, now it has become night. But okay, now let's
slave girls are
talk to Caesar. I'm going to assume this is the quickest way. Oh, this is the artillery that they want me to repair. Without a replacement firing mechanism, this howitzer is useless. Okay. So I can't just repair it via repair skill. Not that I would want to, but apparently you need very specific parts to do this.
The camps are getting crowded. You must enter Caesar's tent alone.
Right.
Anyone else must remain outside.
Right, I forgot about that. Okay, Arcade. You will have to wait again.
Okay. Just don't be gone long. I sunburn easily.
It's night, Arcade. You're not going to sunburn. I can promise you that. And you're going to wait here as well. Now, let's go inside.
Hey.
All right, Caesar. I am back, and I'm sorry to say that I haven't finished your task.
I felt the ground shake a while ago. I'll take that as a sign you've got the job done.
Oh,
Let's press on, shall we? As
Okay.
I was telling you before, I want Mr. House out of the picture. You have an interest in his death, too. If he knows that you destroyed his gadgets beneath the fort, he will strike back. You know where to find him. How he dies, I leave up to you.
Okay, so you're not even going to check if I finished your task. Well, I may have to retract what I said earlier. Maybe he is both full of himself and stupid. Because not even trying to confirm whether I did my job seems kind of stupid. But okay, good for me, I guess. So, let's see. Apparently I have a few questions I can ask. Yeah, let's start by that machine in your tent. The auto dock, right?
It's called an auto doc. As the name suggests, it's an automated physician, more or less. He can treat broken bones, cuts, punctures, scrapes. Sometimes I bestow its use upon someone I favor. Makes for a powerful gift in a culture that forbids painkillers and is largely ignorant of medical science.
Who is ignorant of medical science? The Legion? Again, what were these Luddite tendencies? That seems to be very un-Roman. Okay, but let's ask a few questions here.
What did you want to know?
Are your bodyguards special in any way? Tell me about Vulpes and Coulter. I've heard rumors of your legate, Lanius. What's the story? That's a lot of questions. Let's just start top to bottom, I guess.
My Praetorians embody the martial ideals of my legion. Each one of them has done enough conquering and killing to deserve the rank of Centurion. Instead, I invited them to join my guard. So the invitee chooses whichever current guard he thinks is weakest and challenges him. The fight is to the death. It keeps them from getting complacent.
Okay. I'm not sure if the original Praetorian Guard worked like that. As a matter of fact, I think it didn't. But then again, at this point, I probably shouldn't expect historical accuracy from this guy. So, yeah, tell me about Lucius.
Lucius has been the head of my guard for 5 years now. He was a subordinate guard for 8 before that. No invitee has dared to challenge him yet. Maybe it's an issue of respect. He is getting on in years.
So, does your system not quite work if they don't challenge him out of respect, even though he might be the weakest, since he's getting older? Anyway, let's talk about something else.
What else did you want to know?
Yeah, tell me about Vulpes Inculta.
Vulpes is the best of my frumentari, a remarkable individual from an unremarkable tribe south of the Utah. He was brought into the Legion as a boy, survived training, fought well enough as a legionary to be promoted to the rank of decanus. Then in battle against an unimportant tribe, he broke ranks and led his contubernium through a hole in their defenses to capture its chieftain. Well, his Centurion wanted him crucified for disobedience, so I made him a frumentari.
Okay, well that's actually pretty interesting. So you do value initiative over blind obedience? Anyway, tell me more about the frumentari.
Whatever I require. Infiltration, assassination, dramatic atrocities to break the spirit of the enemy, etc.
Dramatic atrocities.
They're mentally flexible. They operate behind enemy lines for extended periods, imitating the enemy's customs without becoming sullied. In all these things, Vulpes is a master.
Yeah, I guess, we've seen him in New Vegas in his civilian New Vegas outfit.
What else did you want to know?
Yeah, sure. Tell me about Lanius.
Lanius is the greatest of my battlefield commanders. Some might call him a great man, but I'm not sure he qualifies.
Why?
Once, he was the greatest warrior of the Hydebarks, a tribe of the Arizona. Maniacal in battle. Sometimes he'd ambush Legion patrols by himself. When after several months we found and surrounded the Hydebarks camp, their chieftain raised a banner of surrender. The warrior, who was not yet Lanius, went insane with rage. He struck down his chieftain and attacked his own tribe.
Okay, well, that's quite the gruesome tale. So what happened then?
He killed 15 before they brought him down. He didn't die, obviously. I had him tended to. He was maimed, most of his face torn off. It was days before he regained consciousness. When he did, I went to his bedside and showed him the helmet I'd had forged to cover his face. I said he could have it if he'd fight for me. He accepted, on condition that he be allowed to kill the surviving males of his tribe.
Okay.
I said, make it the adult males, and you have a deal.
Interesting. I guess that is not entirely inaccurate from an historical perspective. Like I said earlier, the Roman army did take on warriors from conquered tribes or made them their allies. As a matter of fact, I believe there was an imperial bodyguard legion that consisted of warriors from Germanic tribes, and they were supposed to be pretty loyal. But yeah, he sounds more like a savage than a general. I guess so.
Lanius is savage. Savagely loyal, too, but only to me. He has no love for my legion.
Okay.
But this has its uses. He has no attachment to his men, no compunction about battlefield losses. All he cares about is destroying the enemy. When another legatus or a centurion fails to achieve results, I send Lanius to make things right. His first step is to beat the failed commander to death in front of his assembled troops. Then he orders the ritual of decimatio.
What is decimatio? Well, I actually mentioned that already when we met the Legion for the first time back in Prim? No, it wasn't Prim. It was Nipton. It means that you kill a tenth of your soldiers in a cohort or whatever for their transgressions.
It means decimation. But in ancient Rome, the word had a very specific meaning. A punishment for cowardice. The legionaries are lined up in ranks. Every 10th man steps forward and is beaten to death by his brothers. It instills a certain robust obedience.
Okay, so at least he got that right. So will Lanius lead the assault on Hoover Dam?
Yes. This time my legionaries will be more frightened of the commander behind them than the enemy before them. There will be no failure this time, no retreat, No years of gathering slaves and resources for another assault. With Lanius to drive the Legion forward, the dam will be taken. It will be our bridgehead across the Colorado.
Okay, I do find it interesting that he specifically mentioned that Lanius is loyal just to him and not to the Legion in general, because that's basically the reason why the ancient Romans would take on these foreign soldiers. They were not Romans, or they had no loyalty to the Roman people and only swore loyalty to the emperor. Or think about the Varangian Guard, for example, who was a legion of mostly Northmen, Vikings, but also Saxons and so on, who were in service of the Byzantine emperor. And they were basically recruited for the same reason. They had no interest in protecting Byzantine or whatever. They were only loyal to whoever hired them. But yeah, so why exactly did the Legion lose the first battle? That is an interesting question.
It's not going to happen again, that's all I have to say about it.
Touchy subject, huh? I've heard the command of the first battle was called the Burned Man. Probably also a touchy subject.
And I've heard it's a bad idea to tempt the wrath of Caesar. Change the subject.
It is. It is a very touchy subject, I see.
What else did you want to know?
Okay, we have more questions. What do you think of the NCR? Well, this seems to be an interesting one.
Do you want my opinion as a former citizen or future conqueror? Actually, my opinion's the same either way.
Well, that makes it
As
easy.
a young man, I was taught to venerate President Tandy of Shady Sands, the founding mother of the new California Republic. Did you know her presidency lasted 52 years? And that her father, Aradesh, was the Republic's first president? Does that sound like a democracy to you? Or a hereditary dictatorship?
Well, I didn't know that, but apparently Tandy was voted into office.
Because the council didn't dare oppose her. She was too popular. She had the people's love.
And that's a bad
So
thing?
things ran smoothly, more or less. And as soon as she was gone, as soon as there really could be democracy, what happened then? Ever since losing its queen, the NCR has been weaker, more diffuse. Democracy has been its weakness, not its strength.
Okay, can you explain that a bit more? How is the NCR weak?
Greed runs rampant. The government is corrupt, accepting bribes from Brahmin barons and landowners to the detriment of citizens. The NCR is a loose conglomerate of individuals looking out for themselves. It's lost virtue. No one cares about the collective, the greater good. It's not built to last. I'm just hastening the inevitable.
But, I mean, apparently they are still powerful enough to oppose you to a certain extent.
Of course. The most powerful my legion has faced. Also the first to which I am ideologically opposed. Until now, every tribe I've conquered has been so backwards and stunted, enslavement has been a gift bestowed upon them. My conquest of the Mojave will be a glorious triumph, marking the transition of the Legion from a basically nomadic tribe to a genuine empire. Just as my namesake campaigned in Gaul before he crossed the Rubicon, so have I campaigned and will cross the Colorado.
Okay, I see. I have to say, though, I do find it kind of odd that of all the potential historical role models, he's going to choose the Roman Empire. I mean, he seems to despise the corruption and, I guess, decadence of the NCR, or what he thinks is corruption and decadence anyway. And then he's going to pick the Roman Empire as a template to replace it. I mean, the Roman Empire was notoriously decadent and pretty corrupt as well. And, I mean, it is a common misconception that the fall of the Western Roman Empire was due to decadence. That's usually not the accepted historical opinion anymore. Because the Roman Empire has always been decadent from the beginning. And, point in case, just have a look at a list of Roman emperors. You will be surprised how few of them died of natural causes. Most of them, and that's not even an exaggeration, most of them were murdered. A lot of them by their own Praetorian Guard, by the way. And this didn't start like at the end of the Roman Empire when things already were collapsing. This basically started right at the beginning. So the first emperor obviously is Augustus. So he's generally considered to be fairly competent, and he died of natural causes. The second one is Tiberius. He already has a bit of a mixed reception and legacy, and he may have been killed by his successor, the infamous Caligula. So we had Emperor number 3, and we already have like the poster child for Roman decadence and corruption. And I think the other famous poster child for that is Nero, who is Emperor number 5, I believe. So this wasn't something that happened at the end of the empire. This happened right at the beginning. And to be fair, a lot of what has been written about Nero and Caligula and their decadence may not have been true, but it may have been written by their enemies after their death. But even if only half of what has been written about them is true, they still would embody everything that this guy seems to despise. So why does he want to recreate the Roman Empire? Why is he so obsessed with that? It doesn't really seem to fit his philosophy and worldview. Oh, well, I guess he has a very selective view of the Roman Empire that is not really all that accurate. But okay, let's continue.
What else did you want to know?
Yeah, let's talk about Mr. House.
I know he's a coward, hiding behind an army of robots ensconced in that tower of his like a wizard in one of those Grognak comic books. Some say he's a man, others a machine. I don't care. He's in the way.
So you're not entirely sure what he is either. Yeah, I'm wondering about that myself.
What else did you want to know?
Yeah, let's talk about the regional powers.
I've analyzed the region's tribe to determine how they might be useful. I may tell you more at a later time, if it suits me.
Okay, apparently I'm not getting more info on that subject.
What else did you want to know?
How did you rise to power? Yeah, I guess that is an interesting question too.
Ironically, I was born a profligate myself, a citizen of the NCR. My family lived not far from the Great Boneyard. After raiders killed my father, my mother sought the followers' protection. I was 2 years old. She found work at their library, cooking and cleaning. I learned how to read, and soon I was taking courses, free of charge.
Okay, so you were a follower of the apocalypse. Well, that's interesting.
Oh yes, raised in that tradition. And the teaching stuck. I was taught it was my responsibility to bring the torch of knowledge to the waste. I may have taken the torch part more literally than they intended.
Yeah, you've taken a literal torch to the tribes. What changed you from a follower to a dictator? Again, good question.
When I was 20, the followers sent me east to Grand Canyon. It was my first expedition. Just me and a physician named Calhoun. As an anthropologist and linguist, my assignment was to learn the dialects of the Grand Canyon tribes. What a fucking waste of time.
As a linguist myself, this just hurts my soul. But sure, tell me, why do you think it's a waste of time?
If you think it's worthwhile to make smart people learn how to talk like backward savages, you're a follower of the apocalypse. Or an idiot. Anyway, we met up with a Mormon missionary who already knew a bunch of dialects. Joshua Graham. He was supposed to teach me, but before that went too far, the Blackfoot tribe captured us to hold us for ransom. They were a backward bunch, but the real problem was they didn't know how to fight.
Okay, so what exactly was wrong with them?
The Blackfoot were at war with 7 other tribes, each just as pissant as they were. But outnumbered like that, they weren't going to last long. It's one thing to be taken hostage, another to be lashed to a sinking ship. So over Calhoun's objections, I decided to take certain steps.
Okay, and what steps were that?
I taught them how to use the guns they already had, how to strip and clean them, how to breathe when pulling a trigger, how to reload ammunition. They looked at me like I was some kind of a sorcerer. So I taught them how to make explosives and started drilling them on small unit tactics. If there's anything I learned as a follower of the apocalypse, it's that there's a lot of good information in old books.
So I guess you used your fairly decent and free education because you realized that you could use this education that you received from the followers to easily manipulate and control these tribes who had not the benefit of such an education. Kind of like you're using the order dog to heal them because they don't know how to heal themselves otherwise. I guess that would explain these Luddite anti-technology tendencies in the Legion. He's basically trying to keep his subjects ignorant and in a primitive state on purpose, because then it's easier for him to control them with the knowledge that he has. Kind of like, he's using the autodoc. Of course, the autodoc apparently is broken, so that's not going to work anymore. But okay, let's continue to ask the questions.
Divide et impera, divide and conquer. I led the Blackfoot against the Ridgers, their weakest enemy. When they refused to surrender, I ordered every man, woman, and child killed. When next we surrounded the Kaibabs, and they likewise refused, I took one of their envoys to the Ridgers' village and showed him the corpse piles. This was new for the tribes, you see. They played at war, raiding each other, a little rape and pillage here, a little ransoming there. I showed them total warfare. Like I said, there's a lot you can learn from old books.
Okay, so what happened to the tribes after that?
Kaibabs joined me, and the Fredonians after that. All the pissant tribes with names that should be forgotten. I knew from the start I'd need to eradicate this plague of tribal identities, replacing them with a monolithic culture, a uniform identity. So that's what I did once my confederation of tribes was large enough. I crowned myself Caesar and created a single great tribe, my legion. I sent Calhoun, the follower captured with me, back west with a message that I should not be interfered with. Joshua Graham, the Mormon interpreter, stayed with me and served as my first legatus.
Okay, so if this Joshua Graham was your first legatus, is he the burnt man by any chance? Anyway, I have more questions. And since forming the Legion, all you've done is conquer other tribes. I guess so?
That's right. Decades of warfare, absorbing lesser tribes, gathering power, forging the dross into a vast, razor-sharp scythe. My Legion's expansion has never ceased. Much of the Utah and Colorado and all of Arizona and New Mexico are mine. We have cities of our own, but nothing compared to Vegas. Finally, my Legion will have its Rome.
Okay, so basically you don't actually have an empire yet because you still need to capture New Vegas and the NCR, and then you will be an empire. Alright.
What else did you want to know?
Why is Caesar's Legion so strange? That's an odd question, but let's ask it anyway.
I used Imperial Rome as the model for my Legion precisely because it was so foreign, so alien. I'd seen what had become of the NCR's attempts to emulate the culture of pre-war America, the infighting, the corruption. Rome was a highly militarized autocracy that effectively integrated the foreign cultures it conquered. It dedicated its citizens to something higher than themselves, to the idea of Rome itself. In Rome, I found a template for a society equal to the challenges of the post-apocalyptic world, a society that could and would survive, a society that could prevent mankind from fracturing and destroying itself in this new world by establishing a new Pax Romana.
Again, like I mentioned before, I'm not sure why you picked Rome as an example, because there was lots of infighting in the Roman Empire. As I mentioned, most Roman emperors were murdered. Caesar was murdered. So, why Rome? I mean, you mentioned the Pax Romana. Okay, so that would be the time period from Augustus to, I think, the end of the reign of Marcus Aurelius. So that's about 200 years, and it's usually considered to be like the most stable and most prosperous time of the Roman Empire, because after that it was for the most part just downhill. So it wasn't even all that long. I mean, 200 years wasn't bad for the size of the empire, but it wasn't like that long lasting that he claims it to be. So anyway, let's ask for his definition of Pax Romana.
It means a nationalist, imperialist, totalitarian, homogenous culture that obliterates the identity of every group it conquers. Long-term stability at all cost. The individual has no value beyond his utility to the state, whether as an instrument of war or production.
That is a very narrow definition of Pax Romana, though. I mean, sure, the military aspect was an important part of it, so rebellions were put down quickly and harshly. But you should not underestimate the importance of simple worldly pleasures for the success of the Pax Romana. I mean, look at all these quote-unquote barbarian tribes that Rome conquered. The Gauls, the British tribes. At first, they very fiercely resisted the Roman invasion for years, and there were some rebellions and so on. But then, fairly quickly, after a few generations, they became highly assimilated into Roman culture, to a point where they considered themselves to be Romans and spoke Latin and so on. And yes, the military was part of that. But honestly, I think it's also because at some point they just realized that, you know, it's not so bad to have proper roads and to have public bathhouses with heated water and to have arenas with free entertainment and to have increased trade and be able to import wine and, you know, all the positive aspects. In other words, the Roman Empire actually had something to offer the people it conquered. And a lot of them were quite willing to accept what they had to offer. And I'm not seeing anything that you have to offer the people you're trying to conquer. Yes, I can understand that it would work for these destitute tribes that you have been conquering, that the order and stability of the legion has a certain appeal to them if they have been in constant warfare with each other. But if you want to conquer the NCR in New Vegas, I think you have to offer more than just brutal discipline for one half of your citizens and slavery for the rest. I mean, you don't even allow wine or alcohol. What lousy Romans are you if you don't even have that? So there's a reason why the Romans coined the term panem et circensum, bread and circuses. They knew how to keep their population sort of quiet by giving them enough food, by giving them entertainment, by giving them a certain level of comfort that very often they didn't have before they were part of the Roman Empire. And as far as I can tell, you have none of that so far. So you will have to step up your game if you want to have the stable Pax Romana, because just military power is not going to cut it, I believe. Anyway, let's continue here. So you will destroy the NCR because you hate its inefficiencies.
No. I'll destroy it because it's inevitable that it be destroyed. It's Hegelian dialectics, not personal animosity.
Hegelian dialectics? Really? So you're talking about thesis and antithesis and synthesis. Okay, I'll bite. Enlighten me. What is your thesis and your antithesis?
How do I put this basically enough? It's a philosophical theory, the kind you might encounter if you took time to read some books. The fundamental premise is to envision history as a sequence of dialectical conflicts. Each dialectic begins with a proposition, a thesis, which inherently contains or creates its opposite, an antithesis. Thesis and antithesis. The conflict is inevitable, but the resolution of the conflict yields something new, a synthesis, eliminating the flaws in each, leaving behind common elements and ideas.
Okay, sure, I guess I can kind of get what he's trying to say here. But let's ask the next question first. before I share my opinion on this.
The bombs wiped the slate clean. Human civilization descended to a level of ignorance that effectively set our cultural progress back to zero. The NCR has all the problems of the ancient Roman Republic: extreme bureaucracy, corruption, extensive senatorial infighting. Just as with the ancient Republic, it is natural that a military force should conquer and transform the NCR into a military dictatorship. Thesis and antithesis. The Colorado River is my Rubicon. The NCR Council will be eradicated, but the new synthesis will change the Legion as well, from a basically nomadic army to a standing military force that protects its citizens and the power of its dictator.
Okay, well, I gotta say, I'm not entirely impressed by his historical analogy here. I mean, basically he's saying the NCR is the Roman Republic. That's his thesis. And his legion is not quite the Roman Empire, but basically just the Roman military. And the synthesis is going to be the Roman Empire, which he intends to recreate. So his analogy is kind of sloppy, and he's mixing metaphors here, because, I mean, obviously the Roman Empire didn't conquer the Roman Republic. The Roman Republic became the Roman Empire. And that's not the same as the situation here, because there was a civil war between two factions, and one faction emerged victorious and transformed the form of government of the nation. That's different than the situation here, where we have two different nations fighting each other, and that both have very different cultures and political systems. So he's kind of mixing metaphors, because on the one hand he says his legion is based on Imperial Rome, so that's his antithesis, but at the same time Imperial Rome is kind of his synthesis as well. And his legion is really just based on one aspect of Imperial Rome, which is the army. And I'm not even sure if he got that right all that well. So, yeah, from a historical perspective, I think his comparison is kind of sloppy. So if I may suggest that there's a better comparison in history. As a matter of fact, he himself mentioned that New Vegas is going to be his Rome. So how about that the NCR and New Vegas, maybe in combination, is Rome, and your legion is the barbarian Germanic tribes trying to invade it. I mean, you yourself described your legion as tribal. The Roman Empire was never tribal. The Roman army was never tribal. Your metaphor just doesn't work that way. So in that scenario, you would be the tribes invading. And I feel this is important because it's going to change, potentially going to change your synthesis. I mean, he's basically saying that once he has conquered the NCR, he will recreate this Roman Empire the way that he envisions it anyway. But if he's not like the Roman military or the Roman Empire or whatever he is supposed to be in his argument here, but a tribal army invading an empire, then the result might be a little bit different than he expects. I mean, sure, when the Germanic tribes invaded Rome, there was a synthesis of some sort, but that synthesis was quite heavily slanted towards the conquered culture. So it wasn't Rome who became tribalized or Germanized, it was the tribes who became Romanized. Not to the same extent that those tribes that were part of the Roman Empire were, but still Romanized enough that after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, they basically decided to continue the Roman Empire by creating the Holy Roman Empire, which was significantly different from ancient Rome, but still more similar to Rome than it was to the previous tribal society from which they came. And this is not a unique phenomenon. I mean, you can find lots of historical examples where a group of people, very often a nomadic tribal group, invades an empire or a nation, and then heavily assimilates into the nation of into the culture of the conquered nation, especially if that culture already had like a very high prestige to begin with. Think about the Mongols, for example. The Mongols who conquered Persia very soon became highly Islamized. The Mongols who conquered China adopted a lot of aspects of Chinese culture, the Yuan dynasty. Or think about the Hyksos, tribal nomadic people who ruled Egypt, ancient Egypt, for a few centuries. Again, after a while, they began to imitate Egyptian culture by using hieroglyphs and by using Egyptian regnal names and, calling themselves pharaoh and worshipping Egyptian gods. So it is very common in that situation that the invading nation or culture will change more into the existing culture than vice versa. And I mean, he kind of hints towards it because he says, when we capture the NCR, we will no longer be tribal, we will give up our tribal society. But I feel that you might give up a lot more than you're prepared to, and that you end up being a lot more than the NCR than you think you will. And that's why I think that his Hegelian dialectics is not quite as inevitable as he says. Yes, maybe there's going to be a synthesis, but it might not be what he claims it's going to be. So, yeah, I'm not sure what I think about his historic references here. It seems that he's just trying to insert them because, I don't know, I can understand why he would put in the Roman Republic in place of the NCR, because they're both republics. But his insertion of the Roman Empire as either the thesis, either the antithesis or the synthesis, just seems to be because, I don't know, he has some weird historian's boner for the Roman Empire, and certainly not based on any facts that I've seen. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble a lot here, so let's just continue.
What else did you want to know?
Okay, apparently that's all the question that I can ask. I already asked about the machine. And, I mean, this was a pretty interesting discussion, I gotta say that. I'm still not sure why he is so obsessed with the Roman Empire in particular. Surely he could have used other historical examples. I mean, what about Sparta, for example? That seems to be an obvious choice for him. It seems to be more fitting than Rome, anyway. And then, in your dialectics, then the NCR could be Athens. And your conflict with the NCR basically would be the Peloponnesian War. Right? That seems to be an almost perfect analogy for you. But I guess it can't be Sparta, because Sparta wasn't this famous, glorious, worldwide empire, so that wouldn't suffice. Although, I mean, Sparta did win the war, and it did end the Athenian democracy for a few years at least. It was restored later. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe Sparta was just not glorious enough for him, or maybe the pages about ancient Greek were missing from whatever history book he has been reading. Anyway, still interesting discussion, but honestly I can't help myself, and I feel that Caesar comes across as a bit of a pretentious douche. I mean, I can understand that maybe ancient history is not like a priority in post-apocalyptic education. So maybe he just doesn't know any better, and I wouldn't blame him for that under other circumstances. But he's trying to build an entire empire based on his either flawed knowledge or his cherry-picked knowledge, and I'm not really getting behind that. So let's just end this little rant here.
What else then?
I'll eliminate Mr. House for you. I'm done working for you. I mean, eliminating Mr. House is also part of the quest for the Yes Man. So I guess for the time being, I'm just going to accept it. And like I said, I will try to follow up on all the quests as far as I can until I have to make a definite decision here. So let's accept the task for now. And I guess then we're going to leave.
Good. Don't know what kind of security he has inside the Lucky 38, but if you can find a way of catching him off guard, do so.
Okay, here we go. And I actually leveled up from this quest, so let's see. What do I want to do? I think my speech is high enough for now. My science probably too. Let's increase repair, and I want to increase my medicine as well. Yeah, let's bring up the lockpicking to 30 so I can open at least medium doors with a magazine. And now I have 6 more skill points. So how about, I don't know, a bit more energy weapons, and let's put that final point into, I don't know, guns. Okay, there we go. And I guess that's all I can do here.
Until Mr. House has been dealt with, you and I have nothing to talk about.
All right.
Was there more for us to discuss?
What can you tell me about the legate? Oh, I didn't have these questions before. Interesting. But the episode is getting like really, really long because I have been ranting so much about Caesar's historical inaccuracies that I will probably do this in the next episode. So,
Brute Kaiser.
let's finish this here, and I will talk to Vulpes and maybe even the other guy, Lucius, again in the next episode. And see if there's any more dialogue. But yeah, still interesting discussion. I'm sorry for rambling for so long. I didn't really get much done here, but I think that's something that I wanted to say. Now let's end the episode for now. As usual, thank you for watching, and see you again next time.